So as I stepped back from dieting and started to check in with my body instead of a diet app to decide what and when and all the things on eating, I was like, oh, my body actually has a lot of wisdom. Like these mechanisms are built in. I was designed to have hunger cues and fullness cues. That's how my body was designed.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Lisa Salisbury, and Lisa is a health and weight loss coach for women who want to lose weight without counting and calculating their food. As a former chronic dieter herself, Lisa knows all about being all consumed with everything that goes into your mouth. I know a lot of y'all can resonate with that. And it was only when she learned the tools and skills through coaching that she was able to drop the dieting obsession and drop her own weight. And now as a certified health coach and life coach and weight loss coach, she is using really our innate wisdom to help women drop the pounds. And so we're talking today just about that, what it means to really follow the hunger scale and how to really tune into the signals that your body is giving you, and really how to get in touch with these biological signals that are really telling you when to eat, when to stop eating, and all of those cues that keep your metabolism and your body running at tip-top shape. Love this conversation. So many practical takeaways here. Let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Lisa, and I'm excited about this kind of different conversation we've had about health and weight loss. She is a health and weight loss coach, like I mentioned. And so we are kind of honing in on that weight loss piece, but from a different perspective. I'm excited to get Lisa's expertise on this. So thanks so much for joining us today, Lisa.
Yeah, thanps for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
Yeah, me too. So you are, as I mentioned, you're a health and weight loss coach. Can you, and I know I feel like most people who end up in this wellness space, we have our own journey to get here, right? So can you kind of talk through your journey of getting into, like, specifically honing in on these areas of wellness?
Yeah. So I also kind of consider myself a recovered chronic dieter. I have dieted. So I'm 47 now, and I started dieting when I was in high school. So I had several decades of just the dieting, the years of having children. I have 4 children, and with 5 pregnancies in there. So I was pregnant and nursing for 9 years. So there was a lot of up and down with my weight, and my brain did not deal well with that. I did not have the tools that I have now to understand what was happening in my body was just totally fine. I wasn't actually getting fat, right? My brain was like, this is bad. What is happening? You're right. And with my last baby, I knew, knowing she would be my last, I remember having thoughts about, like, this is the last time it'll be okay for you to be fat. And
oh man,
like, that's obviously not what was happening. I was pregnant, which is
right. Totally different thing there.
This is a different thing. But the problem was that I was creating a lot of scarcity around food. Well, this is the last time you should eat all the things now. So, you're not going to be able to eat cupcakes without guilt later. Right? It's okay to eat everything now. So of course, I gained a lot of extra weight during that pregnancy because of that. So I just was creating a lot of scarcity around food because I was like, well, I can only eat this now. So it just led to a lot of dieting, really. I just spent a lot of the years, and I think about those years when the kids were little and what I was, portraying with my food and trying so hard to hide from them that I was dieting. It was just all this whole tricky thing. But what I came to in the end of my dieting years was macro counting. And I don't want to vilify any one particular program because there's things that work for people. Everyone
Sure.
has, a different like tolerance for dieting. I did not do well with macro counting, and I did it for a long time, but it got to the point where it was just increasing my anxiety. If I could
Anxiety, right.
not hit the macros,
Yep.
like if I didn't know what the restaurant macros were,
Yep.
like,
You
so
become completely neurotic about it.
totally.
Yeah.
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 It was not good for my mental
Mm-hmm.
status. I went into it with the marketing is very good about like, if it fits,
Mm-hmm.
you can eat whatever you want if it fits. And what I found is that I would end up eating lunch meat straight from the refrigerator at the end of the day because I was short on my protein macro. Like why? What?
Yep.
I wasn't hungry for it. I didn't want that. It
Right.
wasn't satisfying. I wasn't like, yes, now I feel healthier. Like
Right.
it wasn't really
Yeah.
feeding any part of what I needed. So I don't think I had an eating disorder. I think I was close to orthorexia,
Yeah.
but I definitely was eating in a disordered way.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's a good distinction. There's a lot of disordered eating in the
Eating,
diet
right.
industry.
Totally.
Yeah. So I found the tools of coaching, and I really think for me, it's all of the things that dieting never offered me. When I bought a book or I bought a program or I followed a website meal plan, they never said, and by the way, when you don't feel like doing this, when you don't want to eat these foods, here's what to do. Here's how to manage a craving. The only thing I was ever given was like, if you want sugar, just choose some sugar-free gum. Well,
Right.
that just literally led to a gum addiction, which I say that sort of tongue in cheek. But when I finally gave up gum, I was like chewing 1 to 2 packs a day
Oh my gosh.
because I was like, oh, you can tell like I have a little bit of a tendency towards like that anxiety type, and so those things just weren't great for me. So
Right.
as I stepped back from dieting and started to check in with my body instead of a diet app to decide what and when and all the things on eating, I was like, oh, my body actually has a lot of wisdom. Like these mechanisms are built in. I was designed to have hunger cues and fullness cues. That's how my body was designed. And so when I just gave up, when I deleted, again, not vilifying anything, but when I deleted my Fitness Pal from my phone, like
Yeah.
it was no joke for my anxiety. I was like, can I do this? Can I break up with macro and calorie counting? And it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah. Did you ever have a point where you like got back on and got back off? Did you have any like back and forth, or were you just kind of cold turkey, like I can do it?
Yeah. No, right. I mean, at the beginning, I was like, okay, I remember sitting down to like a lunch and being like, I'm not going to track this. And, and it wasn't just like, and then I never tracked again. Like I would be like, well, let me just check the calorie count on this meal. Just check it, and then I'd like pop back in, I'd get on the web version of my Fitness Pal. Like I don't have the app, but I'll just, so yeah, I definitely had to like toy with it a little back and forth until I really was like, okay, no, I'm done.
I'm done. Yeah. No, I get that. And I've done the same thing. Same. I had disordered eating for a long time. And I obsessively, I knew the calorie, you name it, I could tell you the calorie count. I get like, it was really obsessive compulsive, really, but same. And then tracking the things. And then, cause then it's like, I don't know, at some point it's like, okay, well, we won't count calories, but it's healthier to count macros. And so then it turns into that and you feel like you're doing something better than counting calories. And it's the same freaking thing. Like it's the same. It's not any different. And then you're just equally as obsessive about it. Cause I was the same way. Or it's like, oh, let me put this in and then see how many I have left. And then it just, and I agree with you. Like it works for some people and some people, I think maybe some people, maybe just don't have the maybe obsessive tendencies, but two, I think if you've ever had I mean, I could say this honestly. I think if you've ever had any sort of like disordered eating behavior, tracking, counting anything is just not a good, I just don't think it's a good thing. I
Yeah.
just don't.
Yeah. And one of the last straws for me too was when I realized I was consistently bringing the kitchen scale to the
Mm,
dinner table and weighing my
weighing.
portion in
Hmm.
front of my teenage daughters.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh,
no,
yeah. Yeah.
I was
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I just one day I was like,
What am I doing?
oh, like
Yeah.
this has gone too far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the other thing. I mean, I mean, my kids are still little, so it's, not in the same thing, but that's the thing I think about a lot too, where it's like, what kind of behavior do you want to model for your kids? And I
Mhm.
don't want my daughter, having that period of her life that I did, where I was just so obsessed with all of that and exercising obsessively and just feeling so terrible about myself. So it's, yeah, you definitely have to be mindful of the behavior you're modeling and like what relationship you want them to have with food and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then going the other way of like getting older, like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be counting macros when I'm 80.
Right. Right. When
Like
does it stop? Yeah.
at some point, I was like, at some point, I need to just learn to eat.
Right. Right.
Just learn to
Just to
eat
eat.
like a
Mm-hmm.
normal person, eat
Mm-hmm.
like, just learn to eat without all of this chatter.
Right. Right. Which leads me to a question I wanted to ask you, because I think I've talked about this before in my Facebook group, but I think, you hear all this, there's so much marketing around different things that suppress appetite
Mm.
and you stay fuller longer and all these things. So it's like, diet culture has us afraid of being hungry. Like we're not
Mm.
supposed to be hungry, but being hungry is a natural thing. Like we're supposed to be hungry.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have about around that? And just like, I guess there's a mindset shift there, but also like you were talking about how you were able to tune into your body to understand like your hunger cues. You're
Mhm.
like, oh, like my body has these signals, and helping people feel like it's okay to be hungry.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so crazy because we've been, you're in the grocery. I always think about the magazines in the grocery line,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how many times have you seen that headline that's like, lose 20 pounds without being hungry? Like,
Yes.
why? Why do we want to suppress this natural
Yep.
thing? Like, nobody is like, learn to manage your bladder without ever feeling like you need to pee. Like,
Right.
why would you
But
that it
right.
doesn't make any sense.
It
Like we
doesn't.
want to be like, oh, I need to pee, that's a signal, and then we use the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom and then
Mm-hmm.
we spend some time not needing to pee, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. We are
Same
like, we
thing.
get this signal and we're like, oh, we need to bring some food on board, then we eat, and then we spend time
Not
not
being
being
right.
hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Totally.
it's just that natural cycle that our body was designed to do. And the problem, I think, with those of us that have been chronic dieters, or just even people that see that messaging, we think it's a problem
Right.
if we're hungry.
Right.
And I have a lot of clients that are like, I'm just not sure, because they have delegated the task of deciding when to eat to a diet app or
Mm-hmm.
to a program that tells you.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a diet once that was like, you have to eat on this schedule. And so I set an alarm and I ate on
Mm-hmm.
that schedule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and
I've had friends do that one before. They have
yeah.
alarms set and yeah. Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Your body does send you hunger signals at those times because your ghrelin will adjust to the clock. And
Right.
so when
Right.
when you feed it at these intervals, it will adjust. And then you think that you're probably ready for food at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It gets very confusing when we've spent so long delegating the task of deciding when to eat to either diet programs or the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to just get back in touch with our hunger
Mm-hmm.
and wait long enough between meals. This idea that we have to eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolism revving is such a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to just give it some time. Wait until you're hungry. And notice the distinction too between the physical sensation of hunger, which is a lightness. We get an empty feeling in our stomach. It might start to growl a little bit. And if you let it go too far, of course, then you might get a headache or, get some dramatic physical symptoms. But when we're first starting to feel hungry, it's going to be in the stomach. And this is a sensation in the body that then travels to the brain and says, hey, we're hungry. When people are like, well, I have to eat because I get hangry, that's emotional hunger. If you're talking about being mad that you haven't eaten, that's actually more in the brain traveling to the body. So we have to be really aware of, is it an idea? We pass the donut shop. Ooh, donuts sound good. And then we get a little signal that actually started in the brain. Our body wasn't hungry. We just had the idea that we should eat, and then it traveled to the body.
Right.
So we want to separate out the idea of being mad that we haven't eaten and getting hangry and just having gone some time and be like, yes, I am very physically hungry, but I don't need to be mad about it.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I know you use the hunger scale a lot with your clients, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. And you're kind of, talking about it now, but just specifically, because I think that's the other thing too, is people are like, well, if I'm not tracking things, or like you're saying, if I'm not following the schedule, like, well, how do I know when to eat? Or how do I know when I'm full? How do I know, like, how do I know all these things? So can you talk a little bit about what the hunger scale is and how we can use that?
Yeah. So I use one, there's lots of different ways to use a hunger scale, but I like one that goes from -10 through 0 to +10. So at a -10, this is like starving. This is several hours without a meal. This is not like I didn't eat a good breakfast and now I'm starving at lunch. It's like I fasted all day for a medical test, right? Like really hungry. It's very uncomfortable to be here. And then through 0 is neutral. This is where we want to spend most of our day. This is, an hour after a meal where you feel neither hungry nor full. You don't feel the food in your stomach, but you're not hungry at all. You just feel very neutral. And then +10 is equally uncomfortable as -10. It's very, very full. This is like Thanksgiving dinner, 3 pieces of pie. You got to lay down in a dark room, unbutton your pants, right? Our society glorifies this like food coma type thing, but it's very uncomfortable. If we're being honest,
it is.
We're just as uncomfortable in the body as we are when we're at like -10.
For sure.
So like I said, we want to spend most of our day at 0, but as we start to get hungry and it's been a few hours, I'm sure you talk about like the digestive benefits of waiting 3 to 4 hours between meals. We don't want to be constantly putting food in the system. We want to have some rest and then digest. So if it's been 2, 3, 4 hours and you're starting to feel some symptoms of hunger, we're at -1, -2. I like for my clients to start eating at a -3 hunger. And then I want them to sit down, butt in a chair, plate on a table. And I want them to eat all the way to a +3. And there's a couple really key reasons for this. I have a technical name for that, from the -3 to a +3. It's called a meal.
Very complex stuff here.
Yeah. But the reason I make a point of that is I'm not a big fan of snacking, because snacking is like, I'm at a -1 and then I'm going to have a little 100-calorie snack pack and I'm getting to a +1. We're not full at that point. We're not satisfied. We haven't had enough. And so what happens is we drop back down again. And then we have a snack and we drop back down and we snack and drop. And then my clients say, I don't know. I just hungry all day. And I was like, did you sit down and have a meal?
Grazing all day.
Like capital M meal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, no. Right. When we're grazing, when we're having that, like, got to eat every 2 hours, we don't get that meal feeling where we're hungry and then we eat through all the way to a +3. And a +3 is not as full as you think.
Right.
You don't need as much food to sustain you to the next meal as you think.
Right.
Right now, like if you're kind of a chronic overeater, you are probably need to scale back to get to that +3. It's a feeling where you could get up from the table and go for a 10-minute walk without issue, without feeling like, oh, sluggish or blah,
I'm gonna puke.
Sloshy. Yes. So it would be very easy. I'm not saying you have to go on a 10-minute walk after every meal, but it's a good measure. Like, would I feel gross in my body? Not in our brains. Like, don't be mean in your brain about it, but like in your body, could you do it? That's a good measure. Because people always are like, well, what is a +3?
Yeah.
So, but that's generally my hunger scale. And once you start really paying attention to how you feel and giving them a number, you're going to start feeling like, oh yeah, -3 hungry. It actually feels good to start eating at this point.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever like, okay, I was at my sister's this weekend, we traveled for Easter, and there's a lot of food when you're the guest, like, we're foodie people. We're
Same.
like, went out to dinner. It was my daughter's birthday. It was Easter. It was like all these things. And my daughter was like, I haven't felt hungry all weekend. Like, it doesn't actually feel that great to just eat on top of not feeling hungry.
Right.
So when you really start waiting for that physical hunger, you actually feel like, yes, I'm really ready for this meal, and you're not mad about it.
Right. And you're so much more satisfied at the end of it too. Yeah. I agree with that.
So sorry, before you ask another question, let me share one more thing. About the hunger scale is a lot of people are like, well, how do I know? And I gave that one tip as far as how you know you're at a +3. One thing to remember is that you are going to have to experiment with this. You will have to undershoot and overshoot, both on the negative side, the hunger side, and on the positive side.
Right.
So always think of this. You said your kids are little, but I'm sure a lot of your listeners have kids that are elementary age, and they've taken these tests that are called iReady. I don't know if that's what they're called in California. I don't know if they're called that all over the country, but basically it's a computer test. And it's like, okay, you third grader, here are some third grade questions. And then they get the third grade questions right. And they're like, okay, we'll give you fourth grade questions and then fifth grade. And to determine their reading level, because if a third grader can read on a sixth grade level, we need to test them beyond that in order to see where they're at.
Right.
And then same thing, if they're getting them wrong, then they'll give them easier. Okay. So I want you to think of the hunger scale as like, okay, I think I'm at a +3 here. I'm going to stop eating and then see how long does it take me to get hungry? How do I feel in 20 minutes? And then reassess. Okay. I think maybe that was just a +2. Feeling really light, feeling like I need to eat in 2 hours. Okay. Then the next time you're going to eat a little more and see. And so we want to overshoot. We want to undershoot. We want to eat when we're slightly hungry. Want to wait a little bit longer. Like, I'm going to let that first signal of physical hunger pass, wait for the second one, see if that's more of a -3. So the first couple of weeks you're practicing this, you're going to be all over with your portions, with your, your meal timing. Like, sometimes I wait and it's like 2:00. I'm like, okay, like I haven't gotten hungry for lunch yet. That's a good indicator that I was probably past a +3 at breakfast. So it just helps. And so write it down when my clients after I teach them the hunger scale, and then their food journal comes back and it says -3, +3 on every meal. I'm like, no. You didn't actually, like, I want to see the numbers all over the place for the first week. I want to see you experiment. I want to see, like I said, think about overshooting and undershooting both, so that you can really hone in on what it feels like to be at that +3. Because if you need to lose weight, meaning if you have decided you want to drop some fat, that you want to burn some fat off your body, however you want to term it, you have been overeating if you have been storing fat, like from a biology standpoint. So right now, so we know you're overshooting that +3 at this point. So you can just start gently with like, leave 2 bites behind, leave 3 bites behind, see what happens, see how you're actually totally fine. You may have been eating consistently to a 5 or 6 at most meals, and then occasionally even more. So we want to start by just bringing it down to a 4 or 5, and then gradually back, down and down. So
that makes total sense. And I like the idea of the trial and error part. Like, let's just play with it and see how it is. And like, I think people also don't get that well, I mean, you said beginning, like we have these signals that work. And I was just having this literally, actually today, I was having this conversation with one of my clients because I was talking, my kids are 2 and 4. And I said, it's crazy when you look at kids, like kids know when to stop eating. They know when they don't want to eat anymore. Their signals are everything works. They're in tune with their bodies and in a way that we really don't realize. But like they know when they're hungry and they know when they're done eating. And they may not have finished their plate, but they know they're done, like they're full. And so I always think about that, like how we get so out of tune with our bodies because we were born with, these signals are working at some point. And then at some point they stopped working or we just, tuned out, whatever. But my question was, because I've had clients before, like you were talking about your clients, like keeping track of like the numbers and stuff. And so, I'm looking through we, do a little food journal at the beginning of our time together, but they're talking about like their feelings and around before and after they eat and all these things. And a lot of times, like you're saying, how people sometimes they eat just like these little snacks, basically just snack all day. So they're never really full. And I recognize that a lot in the food journals that I read. And I'm also honing in on protein. And a lot of it is, we're talking about hormone balance. And so we're talking about getting, I'm using air quotes here, enough protein. And so I find that sometimes women are scared to eat, quote, enough protein, whatever that means, and then 2, I find sometimes it's not so much people, it's not only people who quote need to lose weight or want to lose weight that have trouble with these signals. Like sometimes like people, how do I explain it? Like they think they're eating enough, but they're really not. So I guess my question for you is, in terms of like people who they don't get hungry, like it's the opposite end, right? Like they feel like they just don't get hungry during the day and they'll go all day without eating. Like, do you have any sort of like troubleshooting for people who it's like they're not in tune with their hunger signals in that way? It's not so much the overeating part, but it's like they're under eating because they don't get those hunger signals and they don't feel hungry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I generally speaking, clients that come to me are already overeating. So I don't really get any undereaters, but my first thought would be, how much caffeine are you using to suppress your hunger signals?
Totally.
Because that is very common to be like, oh, I just have some coffee or an energy drink or whatever for breakfast. And that just tides me over. Well, I am not against caffeine. I use caffeine. Like but we have to be very careful that we're not using it to suppress our natural hunger signals.
Right.
So that would be my first question. Second question would be, how much sugar are we eating when we are eating? Because sugar can also really generally it's the opposite direction. It's going to increase your hunger signals, but if sugar does crazy stuff. So
it's true.
we'd want to look and see in the evening when they are eating, if they're a person that undereats during the day and then possibly is overeating in the evening, because we can't be a chronic undereater and also significantly overweight.
Right.
So there's overeating somewhere, whether that's in the evening, on the weekends, right? So I would say we want to get to a more consistent eating pattern, because the undereating is happening some hours of the day, but not all of the hours of the day or the week.
Right. And that's true that all of that, I agree with all of that. And it's true because a lot of times I get to the end of their at the end of the day, it's like, what snacks did you have today? And then it's they're listing, like you're talking about sugary things. I'd say more often than not, it's a list of these sugary things. And it's like, oh, well, there's where all of your energy went. So I totally agree with you. That's a good, all 3 of those are key indicators, I think, of something going on with the undereating part. Yeah, no, I like all of that. I agree with all that. So for the people who are kind of in the place where you were before, where you're like, tracking all these things, I'm completely neurotic about it. Like what I guess strategies maybe is a better word. I was going to say tips, but just people who are ready to kind of get off of that, like obsessive thing with tracking, like what are some, or maybe it's steps that you took to help wean yourself off of that and just be able to tune in to your hunger signals and all that.
I think that first, to start off with, a lot of self-compassion because I was really critical of myself. Like,
Yeah.
oh, so much dieting. A lot of negative self-talk about that. Instead, I'd like you to look at those diets about what you learned. I would not have learned so much about protein and how to incorporate more protein into my diet had I not macro counted. So I'm like, I'm just going to say I'm glad for that piece. And we can really pull the pieces that have worked for you out of diets. I like to say when we're thinking about, well, I don't know what to eat without a diet. I don't know without someone telling me. Really think through, where have you felt really amazing? Because sometimes you actually do feel amazing on a particular diet. What is it? That one has a lot of vegetables. I feel great when I eat vegetables, six servings of vegetables a day, which is, a couple, meaning like a couple servings at each meal. Or I feel great on a lot of fruit. That really helps me with my sugar cravings. Or I feel great when I'm incorporating protein at each meal. There are things you have done in past diets that instead of criticizing yourself and being mad that you spent those years, like, I certainly have had the thoughts where I'm like, I wasted those years and the kids were little thinking only about my body. Yeah, I could think that. Or I could think, look how much I learned. I did my very best. Like, I look back at that past self and I was like, she was doing her very best to take care of 4 little kids and manage a brain that she did not have the tools for. Like, that was the best she could do, was to just like control this one thing, which was like her food. So I'm like, try to be very compassionate when you're stepping out of the dieting and look at what you've learned. Do I need to be completely sugar-free? Probably not. Like, when you look, like, so again, with the macro counting, because it was like, if it fits, I fit in sugar items now and again, and I was fine. So really look and see what has worked for you in the past and combine those things into the way you want to eat for the rest of your life. I don't want you to diet for your entire life. I want you to care about your health for your entire life.
Right.
And I think it's a big difference. There's a big difference between tracking calories and making choices to include vegetables every day, because I want to be at a point where I can live to 100. Like, that's my goal. And if I'm going to do that, well, I'm going to need to eat vegetables. Like, you just do. Right. And I feel best. I feel best when I'm eating a good amount of produce. And so just really thinking through what has worked for you in the past and then creating what I call go-to meals. So I have like 3 breakfasts that I basically rotate between. Those are my go-to breakfasts. I don't need a lot of variety in those meals. And that's actually, I have a free e-guide called Go-To Meals that you can download to kind of guide you in building these, because when we're getting off of dieting, we're like, but I don't know what to eat. Accessing some of those ideas of things that have worked really well for you, or maybe like, I felt great on this and it was something that I feel like contributed to my weight loss in the past. Like, that could be a great go-to meal for you. And so just creating those for yourself, and it's not creating a new diet that you've made up. It's just creating a way that you like to eat. Like, can I eat the kind of oatmeal it's kind of like a protein oatmeal I made up during macro counting, and with kind of a variety of different diets, but that I've kind of honed in. Could I eat that when I was 80? Totally. I could eat that. It's not a diet food. It's just a food that works well for me in the morning.
Yeah. That's great advice. Well, and I like the go-to thing too, because I think when you have the go-tos, then there's less guesswork, and then it keeps you from either falling in a sinkhole or from just like not eating. And then, you go too long and then you're, going back to where you're talking about with the hunger scale and all that. And then you're gorging yourself at, 5 p.m. because you've gone all day without eating, because you didn't feel like eating whatever you had fixed, or you weren't prepared or whatever. So I love those tips. So what would you say, as we're kind of wrapping up here now that you've given a ton of practical things to take away with, but what would you say for people who are like really want to tune in to their body, be able to use these signals and like use their body to tell them when to eat, what would you say like the top 2 or 3 things in getting started with that and tuning in to these signals and their bodies and all of that?
Number one, you've got to start eating without distractions. So if you are a person who eats in front of the TV, most of my clients eat in front of their phones, whether that's scrolling social media or just surfing or shopping on Amazon. Like, we got to put that away. When you're first practicing how it feels in your body, how food feels in your body, and really wanting to pay attention to those amounts, you have to pay attention to the food. So, and like I said before, I want you to eat sitting down. Like, no more eating standing up at the counter, no more eating in the car on the right. Like that's the exception. I know we all live busy lives, so sometimes that happens, but like that's the exception. We don't want to always. I just used to be a person who would take a snack every time I got in the car.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know why. But we want to eat meals at mealtime, in a chair, at a table. If you don't have a table, a TV tray, whatever kind of tray, but without digital things in front of you. And even at first too, without paper, like without a newspaper or anything like that. Right. So you've got to pay attention. So that would be the first thing. Secondly, if you are a person who wants to lose weight, just remember you probably are currently overeating. And if you're like, well, I only eat one meal a day, like we got to get really honest with that. So we want to just start practicing with leaving a couple bites behind. And the idea is not to eat as little as possible. It's to eat a little bit less than what you're currently eating. Right. So just leave 2 bites behind. That's all you need to do the first week, 2 bites. And you're going to think that doesn't mean anything. A fun experiment is to put those 2 bites in a Ziploc bag in your freezer. And then at the end of 2 weeks, I want you to look how much food is in there.
See how much adds up.
It will shock you. It's kind of a fun little experiment. And then you'll start just dishing up 2 bites less. And, so as you go on, you'll start changing up your portions. And that would really be, so number 1, no distractions. Number 2, just practice with leaving 2 bites behind. And number 3, question your portions. Is that the portion that you really need, or is that the portion you've always dished up? So and I'm not saying you're wrong on your portions. I'm just saying allow yourself to question. We eat the same portions, like, you're served a hamburger, you're served a large fry, you're served this size sandwich. Like, sandwiches you go to a sandwich shop, they're like, they come in a 6-inch or a 12-inch. Like, maybe you need 4 inches, maybe you need 5.5 inches. I don't know, but you've always eaten the 6-inch because they serve you the 6-inch. Like,
that's what they give you.
Question it, question your portions. And just decide, like, do I need that much, or have I just always eaten that much? And so it feels normal in my body.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. I have one more question that I want to ask you as we wrap up, a question I'd like to ask everyone. But before I do that, can you let everybody know where to find more about you? And I know I have a link to your freebie and everything, but where they can learn more about you and what you do and all that.
My website is wellwithlisa.com. And on Instagram, I'm well_with_Lisa. So dumb on those usernames.
I know. How many symbols do we need to put in this?
And then of course you can jump over to my podcast. It's called Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well. That's the name of my program as well. I cover all those pillars. So sometimes we're doing an Eat Well episode, sometimes Think Well. We got to think well about our food and our bodies and our cravings, and then living well. We got to sleep. We got to move our body and just all the things that make our life amazing, so that food doesn't have the job of entertainer, comforter, compensator, all of that. So we cover all 3 of those pillars in the podcast.
Love that. Perfect. And I will have notes, links to all that in the show notes, of course. So the last question I want to ask you, Lisa, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
I think it's to stop dieting.
I love that answer.
I think just to remember that diet and exercise are actually not hobbies. When someone's like, what do you like to do? And you list something to do with your dieting or exercise routine. And if exercise is specifically to lose fat, if you're just like, I love to hike, that's different. But I think I got to the point where my only interests were to make food that would help me lose weight and to find exercises that would help me burn fat. Those are not hobbies. That is not where you will find fulfilling life. So eat for energy, eat for pleasure in groups. But the most important thing about being together for a meal is actually not the food. It's the being together. And so just finding joy outside of what you're eating. And if you are only exercising for fat loss, of course, I want you to move your body, and I hope that you do that in such a way that is fulfilling. But if you're only going to the gym to punish yourself for what you ate, like, that's not where it's at. Right. So just enjoying, and that's where I think the live well pillar is really important. So it's interesting you asked this question, because there's lots of ways we can make our lives amazing and outside of food.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that answer. And my Pilates studio, it's kind of the tagline on our website. It's like movement for the joy of movement. Like that's what it's about. It's not about, you're going to burn calories just naturally, whatever, but that's not why we're doing it. It's just for the joy of movement. So I love that answer. And I love that breakdown. So good, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing your insight on this and getting so detailed with explanations on helping us use the hunger scale and all of that. So thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's at The Hope Pedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.